The message arrived before sunrise, sharp and sudden, cutting through the quiet like a crack of ice. Aaron Hale was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at the dim outline of the city through his window. His phone vibrated once. He glanced at it without much thought. By the time he finished reading the message, the air in the room felt thinner. It was brief, polite, final. The company he had helped build no longer needed him. His role was terminated, effective immediately. No meeting, no explanation. No chance to speak. Aaron didn't move. His eyes stayed on the screen, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less cruel. 10 years collapsed into a few lines of text. 10 years of early mornings, late nights, skipped vacations, and promises made to himself that it would all be worth it. He stood slowly, his feet touching the cold floor, and walked to the window. Below, the street was already waking up. Cars moved, people hurried. Life continued without noticing what had just been taken from him. That hurt more than he expected. He didn't need to call anyone to ask why. The answer had been sitting heavy in his chest since the night before. Marcus Bell. Marcus had been his closest colleague, the one person Aaron trusted without question. They had started together, young and hopeful, sharing coffee, ideas, and ambition. When the company struggled, they struggled together. When it grew, they celebrated together. At least that was what Aaron had believed. 2 weeks earlier, Aaron had finally shared his expansion plan. It was risky but smart, built on months of research and sleepless nights. Marcus had listened closely, leaning back in his chair, nodding at the right moments. He asked sharp questions. He smiled. He said it was brilliant. Yesterday, the board meeting had been streamed internally. Aaron had watched from his desk, confused at first, then stunned. The plan Marcus presented was his plan. Every detail. Every angle. Even the phrases Aaron had used when explaining it. The board applauded. The chair praised Marcus for his vision. Aaron sat frozen, his hands cold, his mouth dry. Marcus hadn't looked at him once. Now, standing by the window, Aaron felt the truth settle fully into place. Marcus hadn't just taken his idea. He had taken his future. Promotions, influence, security, all of it now belonged to someone else. The phone buzzed again. A follow-up email. Instructions to return company property. A reminder of confidentiality. The tone was calm, professional, almost kind. That made it worse. Aaron laughed quietly, the sound hollow. He grabbed his coat, his laptop bag, and stepped outside. The morning air was sharp, biting against his face. He walked without direction, letting the city carry him forward. Each step felt unreal, as if he were moving through someone else's life. As he walked, memories followed him. The first day at the company, when the office had been a rented room with flickering lights. The night he and Marcus stayed up fixing a problem that could have shut everything down. The handshake when they promised to watch each other's backs. He stopped at a crosswalk, watching the signal count down. Anger finally broke through the numbness, fast and hot. Not the kind that made him shout, but the kind that tightened his jaw and steadied his breath. Marcus had known exactly what he was doing. He had planned this, smiled through it, waited until the timing was perfect. Aaron crossed the street and kept walking. By the time he reached a small cafe near the river, the sun was rising. He ordered coffee he barely tasted and sat alone at a corner table. Round him, people talked about ordinary things, work, weather, plans for the weekend. Aaron felt like an outsider watching a world he had been quietly pushed out of. He pulled out his laptop and opened old files. Drafts, emails, notes, proof. His name was everywhere. Dates, revisions, messages sent to Marcus with ideas attached. The evidence was clear. Anyone who looked closely would see the truth. A slow, careful thought formed in his mind. He could expose Marcus. The idea didn't rush in. Walk calmly, as if it had always been there, waiting. Aaron imagined sending the files to the board, to the press, to investors who believed in honesty. He imagined the shock, the sudden questions, the fall from grace. For the first time since reading the message, Aaron felt something close to control. He closed the laptop and stared out the window. The river moved steadily, uncaring. He knew this, feeling well. It wasn't justice yet, but it wore the same face. He told himself he wasn't thinking about revenge. He was thinking about fairness, about balance, about making things right. But deep down, another voice whispered, one that admitted how good it would feel to see Marcus lose everything he had stolen. Across town, Marcus stood in his office, staring at his reflection in the glass wall. The city stretched behind him, bright and full of promise. His phone buzzed. With congratulations, messages from board members, praise from colleagues. His name was everywhere now. He should have felt proud. Instead, his stomach tightened. He told himself the same story he had rehearsed all night. The company needed a strong leader, someone bold, someone willing to act. Aaron was talented, but too slow, too careful. Marcus had simply moved first. In business, timing was everything. Still, when he thought of Aaron reading that message, something twisted inside him. He remembered the trust in Aaron's voice when he shared the plan, the relief of finally being understood. Marcus pushed the memory away. He couldn't afford doubt now. Back at the cafe, Aaron finished his coffee and stood up. He didn't know what he would do yet, but he knew one thing clearly. What had been done to him would not be forgotten, whether through exposure or silence. The betrayal had changed him. As he walked along the river, the city fully awake now, Aaron felt the weight of the choice ahead. He had been wronged deeply. The desire to strike back felt natural, almost justified. But somewhere beneath the anger, a question began to form, quiet but persistent. What would revenge really give him? For now, he pushed the question aside. It was only the beginning. Days passed, but time did not soften the blow. It sharpened it. The same thought waiting for him before his feet touched the floor. Marcus had taken everything. The job, the credit. The future Aaron believed he was building. The anger no longer surprised him. It felt settled, like a second heartbeat. He filled his days with movement. Long walks, cold showers, late nights reviewing old files. Staying still made the thoughts louder. Action kept them focused. Every email he reread, every document he opened, dates lined up, edits showed his hands, his words, his ideas. That almost felt like another insult. Aaron imagined the moment the truth would surface. The boardroom falling silent, the careful smiles fading. Marcus standing alone, searching for excuses that would not come. The image played again and again, each time more vivid. It brought a rush of calm, not excitement, but relief. Order would finally return, yet calm never lasted. At night, doubts crept in. What would happen after? He would be right. But would he be whole? The industry was small. People remembered conflict more than truth. Whispers followed anyone who caused a scandal, even when justified. Aaron knew this. He had watched it happen. To others, still, the pull of revenge felt stronger than caution. He told himself it wasn't revenge. It was correction. Marcus had crossed a line, and lines existed for a reason. Across the city, Marcus adjusted quickly to his new role. He learned the rhythm of being praised. It came easily, almost too easily. He smiled at the right times, spoke with confidence. Repeated Aaron's ideas as if they were born from his own mind. But small cracks appeared. He avoided certain hallways. He hesitated before opening emails. Each notification made his pulse jump. He expected exposure, though none came. Silence, it turned out, could be louder than accusation. Marcus convinced himself Aaron would move on. People always did. Life forced. He focused on results, on numbers that rose steadily. The board trusted him. The company grew. That should have been enough. It WASN, single quotes. Late one evening, Marcus stayed in the office long after everyone left. The city outside glowed with lights. He poured himself a glass of water and stared at the dark reflection in the window. He thought about the first years when he and Aaron worked side by side. Okay? Back then, success had felt shared. Now it felt stolen, heavy in his hands. He told himself again that he had done what was necessary. Survival demanded hard choices. Still, a question haunted him. If Aaron had done the same thing, would Marcus have forgiven him? He didn't like the answer that came. Aaron spent the same evening organizing files into clean folders. Okay? He labeled everything carefully, as if preparing evidence for a trial that might never happen. His phone stayed silent. No calls. No messages. It felt deliberate. He wondered if Marcus was afraid. That thought brought a sharp satisfaction, quickly followed by unease. Fear was a weapon. Once used, it changed both sides. Aaron had never wanted to be someone who lived on that edge, yet here, he was considering it. A week later, Aaron ran into an old colleague at a grocery store. They exchanged polite words. The colleague hesitated, then offered a careful smile and said Marcus was doing great things. Aaron nodded, hiding the flicker of anger behind calm eyes. The world had already accepted the lie. That realization pushed him closer to the edge. That night, Aaron drafted the email. Not sent, just written. It was clear and factual. No emotion. No accusations, only proof. He read it twice. Felt powerful. It also felt final. His finger hovered over the trackpad. Instead, he closed the laptop. Sleep did not come easily. His mind raced through outcomes. Public exposure, quiet acknowledgement. Total silence. Each path led somewhere uncertain. He began to understand that revenge was not a single act, but a chain. Once pulled, it dragged everything with it. Marcus received an anonymous message. The next morning, short, neutral, a reminder that records existed. That truth had a memory. No threat. No demand. Marcus stared at the screen, his hands cold. He knew instantly who it was from. The day blurred after that. Meetings lost focus. Words slipped. Confidence wavered. The armor he had built began to crack. He imagined Aaron watching from a distance, waiting. The idea unsettled him more than public shame ever could, for the first time. Marcus considered reaching out. He typed a message, erased it, typed again. Apologies felt too small. Explanations felt weak. He finally sent a simple line, admitting fault without excuse. He did not ask for forgiveness. He did not offer defense. He only acknowledged the harm. When the message was sent, Marcus felt lighter and more afraid at the same time. Aaron read it slowly. Once, then again, he had expected denial. Anger. Silence. Not this. The admission shook him. It complicated everything. Revenge thrived on clear enemies. Regret blurred the edges. Aaron felt his resolve weaken, not because the pain was gone, but because the story was no longer simple. He walked outside, letting the evening air clear his thoughts. The city hummed around him, indifferent to his struggle. He realized something then. Revenge would not erase the betrayal, would only define the next chapter. The question was no longer how to strike back. It was whether he wanted to remain tied to what had already been taken from him. The rain began late that night, soft at first, then steady, tapping against Aaron's window like a clock counting down. He sat at the small table in his apartment, laptop open, the screen glowing in the dark. Everything was ready. The files were organized. Email was written. The addresses were filled in. One click would send the truth into the world. Aaron leaned back and closed his eyes. His heart beat slow but heavy. This was the moment he had imagined so many times. The moment when the weight would finally lift. Or so he had believed. He opened his eyes and reread the message one last time. It was clean. No anger, no insults. just facts, dates, proof. It was enough to break Marcus's rise in a single morning. Enough to turn praise into suspicion, respect into distance. Aaron's hand hovered over the mouse. Images rushed through his mind. Marcus standing in his office, reading the news. The board calling emergency meetings. Phones going silent. Doors closing. Aaron felt a tight pull in his chest. Not joy. Something else. Something sharp. He thought about who he had become during these weeks. Careful, watchful, living between anger and restraint. His days shaped by a single event that no longer existed, yet still ruled him. Revenge had promised release, but instead, it had kept him trapped, replaying the same moment again and again. Outside, car passed, spraying water across the street. Life moved forward, unaware of his decision. Aaron remembered the message Marcus had sent. The admission, the lack of excuses. It did not erase the betrayal, but it changed its shape. Marcus had chosen ambition over loyalty. That truth remained. But now there was also regret, real and heavy. Aaron asked himself a question he had avoided until now. If he sent the email, what would change tomorrow? He would still wake up alone. Still need to rebuild, still carry the memory. Marcus would fall, but Aaron would stay right here, tied to the same moment. Just on the other side of it, the mouse felt cold under his fingers. Across the city, Marcus sat awake on his couch, staring. At his phone, no new messages, no replies. The silence felt endless. He replayed every step that had led him here. Each choice made sense at the time. Each one now felt smaller, weaker, stripped of the confidence he had worn like a shield. He had gained everything he thought he wanted. Power, recognition, security, yet it all felt fragile, as if built on glass. One truth could shatter it. Marcus realized then that fear had become his constant companion. Not fear of failure, but fear of being seen clearly. Fear that his success had no solid ground beneath it. He thought about Aaron, about the way he used. To work quietly, trusting that effort would be enough. Marcus had believed the world rewarded boldness. Now he wondered if it only punished trust. Back in his apartment, Aaron stood up and walked to the window. Rain streaked down the glass, bending the city lights into long lines. He placed his palm against the cool surface and took a slow breath. He wasn't deciding Marcus's fate alone. He was deciding his own. Aaron returned to the table and closed the laptop. The screen went dark. The room felt quieter, as if it had been holding its breath with him. He unplugged the charger, folded the laptop shut, and set it aside. The choice felt heavy, but also clean. The next morning, the rain had washed the city bright. Aaron woke early, not from tension, but from clarity. He brewed coffee, the smell filling the room, grounding him in something simple and real. For the first time in weeks, his thoughts did not race. He opened his laptop again, not to send the email, but to delete it. The files, the drafts, the careful folders. One by one, they disappeared. He paused once, his finger hovering over the key, then pressed it. The last piece vanished. There was no rush of relief. No dramatic release. Just a quiet sense of closure, slow and steady. Later that day, Aaron sent a different message. Not to the board, not to the press, to a small company that had once reached out to him, curious about his ideas. The email was short. Honest, it did not mention betrayal or loss. It spoke only of experience and readiness to build again. Hours passed. Then a reply arrived. They wanted to talk. Across town, Marcus walked into his office with the same view and the same title, but everything felt changed. He no longer felt watched, yet the fear had not vanished. It had shifted inward. He knew now that success taken without integrity came with a cost that never fully went away. Days turned into weeks. Aaron threw himself into new work. It was smaller, riskier, but it was his. He worked with people who asked questions and listened to answers. The pace was fast, the days long, but the weight on his chest slowly eased. Sometimes anger surfaced unexpectedly. A name, a headline, a memory, but it no longer ruled him. He let it pass, like weather. Marcus continued to rise, but the joy never returned the way he expected. Praise felt thin. Each achievement reminded him of what he had traded to get there. He began to mentor younger employees, pushing honesty harder than ambition. As if trying to balance a scale no one else could see, they never spoke again. Years later, Aaron stood in a new office, sunlight spilling across the floor. He watched his team work, their voices blending into a steady rhythm. He felt tired, but in a good way, earned. He thought briefly of the path he had almost taken, the damage he could have caused. He understood something now that he hadn't before. Revenge promised power, but it asked for a permanent place in return. Letting go had not erased the pain, but it had given him space to grow beyond it. The betrayal had shaped him, but it did not define him. As evening settled and the city lights came on, Aaron shut down his computer and headed home. The past no longer followed him like a shadow. It was a chapter, closed not by force, but by choice. And in that choice, he had found something stronger than revenge: peace.